There we go. A couple more people in the waiting room. How fun. Such an impromptu, like, I'm curious about this thing. Who else is curious about this thing? Let's just like learn together. And here we are. I think we had like 90 people registered with the registration link, and I only shared this in our in my stories, in my Instagram stories. So I'm imagining most of you I know from the Instagram world. And then this morning I was like, oh, I have an email list too. So let me just throw it out. Let me just make this a whole community thing. This actually originally started where I reached out to like my local community in Austin, was like, hey, anybody else want to be like a peptide geek with me? And like, let's chat. And then it just kind of kept growing. I'm like, if I'm gonna put together a call, I might as well share with as many people who want to learn with me. Let's just, if we can feel better and look better and all the things, then let's learn how to do this together. Um, so I'm so excited to learn with all of you. I just on a personal note, peptides has been it's been a fascinating thing for me. Especially since I turned 37. I've been hearing about it for a while. A couple of years ago, I had some clients that were getting into peptides and they would like inject themselves. I'm like, I don't know if that's safe. Like, how does that work? And then I had like certain life things happen where I was like, what are those things again that you did there? Can I just like double click on that? And just to kind of give you a little bit of context as to how like we got to this call and then my personal journey, if y'all have been following me for a while, then you'll have seen a huge transition over the last couple of years. Back-to-back pregnancies. I had three back-to-back pregnancies in a row. One ended at 22 weeks, and then I had a 5 week postpartum, technically, and then went right back into another pregnancy. So we had 22-week loss, and then went right into our pregnancy with Isaiah. I gained between 65 and 70 pounds. My hormones were all over the place. It was just like and then on the other side of pregnancy and postpartum, I was like, who even is this person? My body felt so foreign to me. I mean, I think postpartum, it feels that way for most people. It's like, who even am I now? Like, nothing's the same. Like, my identity and body, all the things. Um, but yeah, you heard five weeks. I found out at 2 months, so 8 weeks. I found out I was pregnant, but that pregnancy technically started the 3 weeks prior. So my first ovulation after we had our first little boy, Gabriel. So yeah, it was a journey. I was pregnant for about 15 and a half months straight. And so, after Isaiah was born, I was like, okay, I know how to do this thing. I know how to eat well. I know how to track macros. I know how to lift heavy. I get in the sauna. I'll cold plunge. I will get in this. I will wake up and put my face in the sun. I will go on my long walks. I'll strap the baby to me. I'm not afraid of the process. I'll lose the weight. I'll return to myself. And what I found so challenging was that I was doing all the right things and I was losing some of the weight, but I wasn't necessarily feeling better. I actually started feeling really bad. I'd lost about 55 of the 55 pounds. I had like 8 to 10 pounds before I was gonna be at my like pre pregnancy weight. And I was like full on PMDD symptoms, like intense irritability. I had just the most intense anxiety felt sensation I've ever experienced in my life. My labs were okay-ish. My hormones were out of whack. I stalled losing weight. It was like kind of happening for me. Really awful, intense hormonal breakouts, inflammation. It was just really challenging. And I had a couple of conversations with people in community here. One in particular, which I will give her the credit. Her name is Dr. Kayla Osterhoff. She's like a new friend of mine here in Austin. And she's exceptional in women's health. And she said, hey, maybe bring to your functional medicine practitioner the idea of microdosing a GLP 1 GIP, like tirzepatide. And she's like, not like a dose that you lose weight, but like a little bit and see how that goes. And at that point, I was like, if you told me crystal meth would do it, I'd be like, again, let's go. Because I was just so ready to feel better. And I was doing all the things and I was doing all the supplements and I had all my stuff. And so I, these people still coming in the, oh, few people in the waiting room. And so I was like, you know what? Let's just try it. I brought it up to my functional med doctor and she goes, I think this is an exceptional idea. I've been having this in my back pocket for PCOS, PMDD, endometriosis. At that point, I was having cycles that were 17 days, 22 days. So I felt like I was in that luteal phase, like rip your face off. Like it was like I was always there. I was like 17-day cycle. How am I in this, luteal phase? And my husband was like, this is temporary, right? You're going to come out of this at some point. It was impacting our intimacy. It was impacting our connection. It was impacting my ability to enjoy my beautiful baby boy. And so I said, yes, let's try it. And within a week to 2 weeks, the majority of my symptoms just went away. And I was like, whoa, I didn't know I could feel this good. I always thought that when stuff was wrong in labs, it was like this big overhaul thing that I needed to do. I guess I need to detox and do this protocol, and it's these thousands of dollars, and it's these millions of supplements, and I've got to like have like a cheat sheet on my refrigerator of like when to take what, and this tincture and this dissolvable. It was this whole process that I thought I was going to have to do. And microdosing a peptide changed so much for me. And so I was like, okay, I'm in. Tell me what else. What else is happening in the world of peptides? I've now since tried several different, but that was the beginning of my journey and how I clued into this. I started sharing this relatively recently. I wanted to get kind of my footing in the world of peptides before I started sharing it publicly. The impact on my relationship, incredible. My ability to be present with my husband and my son and feel confident in my body and like beyond. So I didn't start doing the tirzepatide or the GLP-1 GIP in order to lose weight, but that last 8 to 10 pounds went away, and my mojo, it just like came back. Except, my it couldn't make my boobs full again. But we'll work on that later. You know. This is later, but like generally, like I felt like my vitality and my lust for life came back, which definitely translated into my intimacy with my husband and all of that. So, and he just like keeps telling me I'm so hot. He always did, even when I was a little bit heavier and puffier because of the kind of guy he is. But anyway, so that's like my like story, which led me to here. I've been navigating it. I wanted to share it more. Anytime I shared this on social media, people were like, "What is this? Where do you even get this? What route do you take? What does it look like?" And then eventually I got so many messages that I wasn't really sure. People were giving me like their information about their Hashimoto's and their just like all these different things. And I was like, I don't actually know the answers to these questions because I only have my personal experience and then how I've been kind of geeking out. I'm not a practitioner. I'm definitely considering going through a certification course to be able to talk more openly about this. But I thought, you know what? I'll find someone who's my vibe, who's like kind of in a similar-ish season of life, relates probably to majority of my audience and who knows her stuff. And I found Katie through a friend of mine who happens to be a chiropractor and was like, we were kind of nerding out on peptides. She had an injury. She got on, it's called BPC 157, TB 500. And I actually just recently got that for my mom for a rotator cuff injury because her insurance would only cover unlimited physical therapy. And it wasn't getting any better. And it kind of was even getting worse to the point where she's now got a spur that's pressing on some tendons. And so I got her some peptides and she just got to the place where she's like, I can't pick up my grandbaby and this is breaking my heart. And so I'm hoping that peptides are going to change the game for her too. I might have to fly to New Orleans to inject her, but whatever we got to do to get her picking up the grandbaby again. Anyway, this led me to Katie, and she's going to take us on a little journey today. I'm going to start with my preamble here. Anyway, I've got my notepad. I've got, I'm prepped to take my notes. And at the end of the call, I think Katie and I will discuss some of the things that we've come up with as far as like the routes that you can take to actually get peptides that you might want to try. So how's everybody feeling? Yeah, cool. Well, I think as like I hand over to Katie, it'd be cool if maybe some of you dropped in the chat like what you're most curious about. Now, I handed over to Katie all of the questions from our chat, but I'm curious about what you're curious about right now on this call that's most relevant. So, Katie, thank you so much for joining us. And the floor is yours.
I am so excited to be here. I could talk about peptides till I am blue in the face. Like they are an absolute game changer and they've become my passion for sure through my own personal experience. So, um, maybe we can, I have so much prepared because like she mentioned, I did go through and pull all the questions that you guys put in the Telegram chat. So we'll get answers to all of those. And then, as I go throughout like all the information that I have prepared to share with you guys, I might answer a question that you have. So put questions in the chat. And then at the end, if there's anything that we didn't get to, then we can address it then. Okay, so first of all, a little bit about me. I am Katie Decker. I live in southern Utah, so down in the desert, about 2 hours outside of Vegas. I married my college sweetheart. We've been together 24 years and we have three girls who are 20, 17, and 12. I graduated with my bachelor's degree from the University of Utah, and where I was a Division I All-American athlete. So that's how me and my husband met. He was playing football. I was on the track team. So I've always had a huge passion for fitness and health. And in about 2007, I began like my own personal health journey to address things that started popping up for me, right? I was diagnosed with hypothyroid and then Hashimoto's, and then, we had back-to-back miscarriages, and I just kept asking why. This then led me to become an integrative health practitioner. I also collected my yoga certification along the way and my life coaching. So I was running women's retreats for quite a while. And then this tool of functional testing kind of came into the scene for me. So I specialize in epigenetic hair follicle analysis. So we take 4 follicles from your head, run them through our scanner, and we get a 37-page report that covers 800 indicators about your health. So it's all the answers that you can't seek through the Western medical route, right? They're not looking for candida, they're not looking for mold, they're not looking for parasites, they're not looking at how your gut is functioning, how it's absorbing, what your systems are that are struggling. And so I, have scanned well over 2,000 people. I'm the #1 practitioner on the planet. I've also added in Dutch tests because in my own journey, right, with perimenopause, I was like, what the hell is happening here? Seeking answers for myself, I ran the Dutch and I was like, this is a tool I have to have in my toolkit. I also do GI maps, DNA testing, and food sensitivity tests as well. So that's kind of what I do pretty much full time is I meet with clients nationwide, either in person or on Zoom like this. And we go over test results, we make a plan, we get people feeling better. So as you can imagine, I was doing all the things right, right? Like I thought that I could outrun perimenopause. I was like, listen, my sleep is good. I'm in the red light. I have a vibration plate. I have a cold plunge. I am lifting heavy in the gym 3 to 4 times a week. I am eating phenomenally. Like, you name it, me doing it, right? So at about 41, I started to notice the inflammation just slowly creep on. And at first I was like, huh, that's weird. All the normal things that I've always done, that have always worked, aren't working. And through, running my Dutch test and realizing that my estrogen had fallen off, and estrogen is anti-inflammatory. So for a lot of women, that's in midlife when they start to notice the shifts and the changes as far as like the inflammation, the joints aching, the brain fog, is when their estrogen declines. So through a little bit of HRT and researching peptides, I it was one of those things where the pain of the problem had to outgrow the pain of the solution, right? And we've all seen how polarizing peptides have been because I think that we've all noticed that the few have ruined it for the many, right? There's people that are going about it the wrong way. And there's a lot of fear mongering around the symptoms that can pop up when they're taken the wrong way. And also just opening up and learning there are so many different peptides. The one that is in the media most often are the GLPs, but there are peptides for so many different functions in your body. So, um, I personally have been microdosing a GLP GIP since June, really low dose. I in July tore my hamstring being dumb. And so I did an 8 week round of BPC 157 and TB 500, which BPC stands for body protective compound. Um, I was within 3 weeks back to lifting my same weights. Like, cannot praise that one enough. I also have celiac. So my gut in doing BPC TB is the best it's been in years. And I've done all the things, right? I've done the parasite cleanses, I've done the GI maps, I've done the specific strains of probiotics, I've done the sauerkraut. You like again, you name it, your girl has done it. So, and then I just most recently added ipamorelin and tesamorelin because I wanted to put on a little bit more muscle mass. Because as we know, muscle is longevity, it is our metabolic tool, especially as we age for women. So, my goal has and always will be strong over skinny. Like me starting peptides, that was not my goal to get skinny, but I did lose a lot of inflammation and I have dropped body fat percentage, but I've also put on muscle on my peptide journey. So, okay, so I want to transition now and talk a little bit about what peptides actually are, because I don't think many people know what a peptide is. So, peptides are short chains of amino acids. So, an amino acid is like a really small protein in your body, and it's typically less than 50 when you're looking at a peptide. So these are tiny strings of proteins that your body already makes naturally, and they act as messengers that tell your body specific jobs, right? There are peptides that say repair tissue, burn fat, build collagen, improve recovery, regulate your appetite, support your hormone, boost libido and energy, right? So, peptides, you have to think of them as signals that your body already uses. Peptide therapies just give you more of a specific signal, and these signals can decline as we age, right? Due to hormone fluctuations, stress, lack of sleep, right? There's the list goes on and on. As things shift in our body, we become less adapt to have these pulses from these peptides. So it's replacing something, because that's the question I get a lot, right? It's like, why would you, as an integrative health practitioner, ever inject something synthetic into your body? And that's where we have to kind of shift the thinking, right? It's like it's not like an opioid. That's like this is a completely different, you're on a totally different playing field when it comes to peptides because they're not foreign to your body. Yes, they are synthetically compounded, but they are bioidentical. So, um, when it comes to these peptides, um, they're not just for weight loss. That's the one, like I mentioned, we're more familiar with, like the GLPs, because they've become the most popular in recent years. So, question that I get too is, how do you know what peptide to take? Where do I even start, right? And this is based simply off of what are your goals? What do you want to feel? What do you want to heal? And what do you want to see change within your body and your mind and your energy levels and your sleep and your muscle mass and your inflammation? That's what we ask. So you can personalize your peptide stack based on what your body needs, what you're feeling called to. And the good thing is you do a round of peptides, they're typically 2 to 3 months, and then you can evaluate, okay, that one felt really good. I'm going to take a tolerance break and go back on it, or I got the improvements that I need from it. My body feels like it's kickstarted, and those signals are now messaging by themselves. So I'm going to put that one down and probably not do it again, right? So it is kind of like you have to be super intuitive and in tune with what your body is asking for. And then how do you stack them, right? Like I mentioned, a peptide stack. So there's a lot of stacks that the goal is for them to complement each other. So this is when you take two or more peptides, or one or two or three or four peptides, and you stack them together, which just means you take them at the same time. And this is completely safe because they work on different signaling messengers in your body. They're not going to cross one another. There are some that you don't want to do at the same time, but for the most part, most of them you can do in combination with each other. So um, you can do a fat loss peptide along with a muscle growth peptide, a recovery peptide, and an anti-aging peptide. I just recommend you don't do them in the same syringe. Always make sure to separate them out. And if you're starting out, you don't want to do any kind of growth hormone peptide and a GLP together. You just want to space them morning and night. Do 12 hours between, just so that your body can get used to that. So like do a growth hormone like ipamorelin, tesamorelin, or samorelin at night, and then do your GLP in the morning before breakfast. And then your recovery peptides are more flexible. So you can kind of like weave them in. Some peptides are once a week. Some are like 5 days on and 2 days off. That information will come from, the dosing will come from a prescriber. So different peptides will be taken at different times. The next question, do they regulate your hormones? So yes, but not in the way that you think they do, right? They signal your body to produce more of certain hormones. They signal your body to respond better to your hormones. And when you reduce inflammation and stress, your hormones can just produce and balance naturally. So they don't necessarily replace hormones. They're not any, like, they don't take the place of bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. They can help your body to make and utilize more of your own hormone production effectively. I do want to tell you that in working with clients over the last 6 months and even with myself, the more dialed in your hormones are, the more effective your peptide stack will be. You will respond better, you'll respond quicker, you will have better results. So you kind of have to look at them as we got to dial them in together. Okay, so one of the biggest things that I get asked to is about safety, right? So let's talk about that because, again, there's so much fear mongering around them. So let's talk about a couple of safety questions. One of the big ones from this chat was about breastfeeding and nursing. So the general recommendation is it's no. And that is just because there isn't enough research to know how it affects the breast milk, right? If it transfers, how it affects baby's development, or how it will affect your supply. So just because the data is limited, they actually did have a study come out recently about GLPs and that there was no trace of them in breast milk at all. But it is, as we know, going to take the medical world some time to catch up to that. So you're going to have a very, very hard time finding a prescriber that will prescribe while you're nursing or breastfeeding currently, just due to the information that we have available right now. So enjoy that phase of life, right? Like relish in those moments. And then when that season is over, then you can start your peptide journey. So do you have to get them from a doctor for them to be considered safe? So I am in the camp. I absolutely agree that they should be overseen by a licensed medical provider. I will only take or suggest peptides that I know come from dedicated 503A compounding pharmacies that operate under really strict compounding regulations. They're regulated by the state, they're inspected by the FDA, and they're required to follow very strict standards for sourcing, testing, and sterile handling. I think you guys saw, well, maybe you didn't, but Eli Lilly, which is the biggest producer of GLP-1s like Ozempic that come in the pen, they found a bunch of cat hair in all of their samples and their lab. So compounding pharmacies are actually under stricter regulations. So A big core part of the regulation is the raw material sourcing. So licensed 503A compounding pharmacies, they have to purchase active pharmaceutical ingredients from FDA registered and FDA inspected manufacturers. There's only a small number of these manufacturers worldwide. There's about 6 of them. And sourcing is significantly more expensive when you have to meet these pharmaceutical standards of purity, potency, and sterility. So you can find peptides cheap, right? You can find people that are reconstituting peptides that they bought the powder from China in their kitchen. Or literally, I heard this week someone was buying it from the trunk of someone else's car in the parking lot. The goal is not to find the cheapest peptide possible. Like, you're going to take this and you want it to be effective. You want it to be clean. You want it to be good quality. So sourcing and quality absolutely matter. Um, you want to find suppliers, like I mentioned, that don't bypass these requirements. You want to look for independent third-party tested facilities that for purity, potency, that you want to verify that this compounding takes place in a sterile room where there's not going to be any cat hair involved. And people are, masking up, wearing hairnets, taking all of the precautions. So you don't want to reconstitute them in your kitchen. You don't want to be buying them from every corner med spa that you drive past, right? Like, that are literally just buying the powder from China and reconstituting themselves and then drawing them into syringes for you and charging you like $100 a syringe. I'm sure some of you guys have seen this, right? So definitely some things to look for when you're looking for a peptide company. So any contraindications, right? Who should not take peptides? We've kind of already established that if you're breastfeeding or nursing or pregnant, that's a no-go. But also anyone that has active cancer, specifically with the growth hormone peptides, because you just don't want those growth hormone pulses to go toward growing any type of active cancer. So active cancer is a no. If you have unregulated diabetes, right? That absolutely needs to be monitored by a doctor. You should not be just like grabbing in peptides that feel right to you at the moment if you are completely unsupported in your diabetes. Also, if you have really severe kidney or liver disease, just because you don't want to add any additional stress to those organs. We all know that those are our most vital detox organs. And then also, if you're taking blood thinners or immunosuppressants, you want to avoid peptides. So there was a scare about thyroid cancer. And the study that they did, they actually did this on rats. And when you kind of take a step back and you look at the information that came from that study and you realize that rats have, gosh, what was it? Like 300% more thyroid hormones in their body than humans do. And the dosages that they were giving to these rats were like astronomically high. So they noticed that there was an increase specifically only in medullary thyroid cancer in these rats. But when we go to translate that to humans, there's a big disconnect, right? So that kind of got debunked as well, because that was a big fear factor within the news was like, you're going to get thyroid cancer. There's a black box warning on them for thyroid cancer. But when you look at the details of it, you can make more sense of it. Right? Like, don't just read the headline, read the article. Okay, so next, impacts on fertility. So most peptides haven't been studied. I mean, there's peptides that have been around 30, 40 years, right? But they're becoming more and more popular. And because they're not controlled by the FDA, we don't have as much information or as many studies on them. So they haven't been studied specifically for fertility, but they can, like we mentioned, shift your hormone cycles. So they can impact fertility because it's addressing the inflammation, it's helping with insulin resistance, it's helping with PCOS, which when all of those are better regulated and controlled, your hormone cycles are more predictable. You're ovulating more predictably too, so you have a higher chance of getting pregnant. So I have had a handful of clients that do like a 3-month round of a GLP GIP to regulate and help get their hormones cycling effectively. And then they stop and actively try to get pregnant. And they've had a lot of success with that. So there's peptides like MOTS-C, BPC-157, NAD+, and kisspeptin that can help improve egg quality. They help bring down inflammation in your body. They help with your metabolic health. And so all of these can be beneficial before an embryo transfer, which I think that was another question in the chat is like, hey, I'm looking to do an embryo transfer. Would this be something that would be beneficial for me to do before that? And so, yes, again, right, same. But you should stop right before the transfer or stop right before you actively are trying to get pregnant. You kind of use it as a precursor for that. Okay, oh, let's talk about this. So issues with them with thyroid cancer. We kind of touched about that, but some peptides can influence growth factors and metabolism. And in a people with a history of medullary thyroid cancer, this theoretically can stimulate unwanted cell growth. So it does depend on the type of cancer you've had and also the type of peptide that you're choosing as to whether your specific cancer history is an issue with peptides, but you always just want to check with your doctor. And then help with Hashimoto's. So I have Hashimoto's. Anyone else? Raise your hand. It's a very common diagnosis, right? So peptides can help support healing, reduce inflammation, improve overall recovery, which all correlate with lowering autoimmune markers and thyroid antibodies. I've actually known quite a few women that after doing peptides have been able to lower their dose of thyroid meds because your thyroid just comes back on board, right? When it's not weighed down by all of the inflammation and the stress. So it can secondarily help with it. Obviously, it's not considered like a treatment for it. You want to like monitor your thyroid levels very closely if you're going to adjust your meds and do that obviously with your doc. And then help with PCOS. So we talked about this at the top of the call, right? So it can help indirectly. Again, it's not signaling your body specifically, but because of how it works on the different mechanisms, it indirectly helps with hormones and PMDD and PCOS. And so, for example, the GLP-1s, these can improve your insulin sensitivity. So that will help support weight management. It helps regulate your metabolic function. And both of those in turn help women with PCOS. Another really common question that I get asked a lot is there a blood test that I should take before starting? There's not any blood test that's required. I do suggest that you've had like a full panel of labs. We all should do that annually, right? Just to check in with our health and see where things are at. Like it's information. We should always be gathering data about ourselves and our health. It's not required. But if you are feeling like it's been a while since you've had blood work, the labs that you want to look for liver and kidney labs. You want to check your blood sugar. You want to do like a complete metabolic panel. You want to do your hemoglobin A1C, right, for your blood sugar levels and insulin and metabolism support. You want to do a lipid panel and then a thyroid panel just to see where things are at. And then always as an option, you can throw in like your sex hormone panel. So your progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, and a CBC, just a complete blood count. So those are options. If you were going to run a blood panel, those are the things that you'd want to have in there. And a lot of people will run that panel before starting a peptide round. And then in about 6 months, they'll rerun it so that they have that data to compare side by side about how peptides have specifically helped with all of those markers. Okay, so now that we've addressed safety, the next thing that people want to know is what are like what do the results look like with peptides? So let's talk a little bit about potential pros and cons. So peptides have been used medically for decades, but many of the newer ones have been picked up by the wellness industry, right? That are going to help with recovery. And they're relatively new. They're still being studied. So some this is, any kind of side effects. The only thing that I've seen with people is injection site reaction. So I've had a couple of people report to me that they just get like a red welt on the injection site. That can be supported by doing a warm compress on the injection site before injecting. And if you do feel like you have higher histamine response, you can take an antihistamine before injecting. That is something that has been suggested. Um, but nausea, headache, and both of those can be troubleshot by lowering your dose. Typically, specifically with a GLP or GLP GIP, if you're having lightheadedness or a lot of nausea or any type of weakness, your dose is too high. This again is why I always come back to the importance of having them compounded. Because if you just get that preloaded dose in a pen, you have no control over your dosing, right? So when you get it in a vial where it's compounded, I typically have people start way lower than the recommended starting microdose, just because we have GLP receptors all over our body. Specifically, a lot of them are in our gut and our brain. And I kind of use this analogy of we also have dopamine receptors, right? So when we take a high dose of heroin, we flood those dopamine receptors and they become desensitized to it. The same thing can happen with our GLP receptors, right? If you start at a high dose, which typically that's where big pharma starts you, and then they push you higher and higher and higher, that's where you're flooding those receptors. And the majority of people will respond really well to a very tiny microdose, which is why I always suggest looking outside of the preloaded pen to a compounded version because you have complete control. So when I first started, my very first week, I did my injection and I noticed in a couple of days some of those symptoms, right? I was a little nauseous. I was like getting lightheaded at the gym when I was lifting. I was having a hard time eating, specifically like hitting my protein goals. And I was like, okay, this is exactly what I don't want. So the next week, I just stepped my dose way down and found that perfect spot for me where I was getting the benefits without any of the side effects. So they can be avoided by going about it the right way. And this is also okay, we'll get into that too. We'll talk about like the hair loss and the Ozempic face and all of that. Okay, so what happens when you stop peptides? Is there a big rebound effect, right? I think a lot of us are afraid of that. If I go down this journey and I do peptides for 3, 6 months and I stop, am I going to bounce back to where I was? So peptides are not like forever medications that you need to stay on. You have to think of them more as like a reset at a cellular level. They help your body start functioning in the way that it's designed to. A lot of people choose to do some of them long term. The GLPs are absolutely safe to do a very small microdose long term. Um, and they choose that because they're seeing consistent results. They're seeing their inflammation stay at bay. And honestly, they're much more effective than taking a medication that's just going to cover up your symptoms. So if and when you take a break from your peptides and you go off of them, you don't necessarily lose everything overnight. You still, especially if you've brought in healthy habits, right? You've made some dietary changes, you've hit protein goals, you're staying hydrated, your bowels are moving consistently, your strength training, right? You've created this lifestyle. You're not going to see a rebound effect really if you have incorporated all of those foundational things in place along with your peptide use. So for some, it's like giving yourselves a jump start. And then you can maintain those results through like your lifestyle and your wellness practices. Others do like to stay on them consistently because they see the continued benefits for energy, detox, brain clarity, lowering inflammation, tissue repair, right? So everyone's a little different, but they are designed to support your body and not to create dependence. Okay, and there's a couple different delivery methods when it comes to peptides. This was a question in the chat as well. So let's talk about how they're taken. So you can do injectables, subcutaneous injections. You can do oral capsules. and you can do like sublingual drops. Those are the three main delivery forms of peptides. So, in general, injectable peptides tend to be the most effective just because they bypass digestion. They go directly into the bloodstream, so your body can actually use them immediately as intended. Most peptides are really delicate chains of amino acids, and when taken orally, they often get broken down by your stomach acid and before they even have a chance to work. So, that being said, some oral peptides are formulated to be absorbed more effectively. They just tend to have less predictable results compared to the injectables. So, obviously, if you have like a major aversion to needles, you're just like, I cannot, there's no way I can inject anything ever. The first time I ever injected anything, it was a peptide. So I get it. And I got it. And it sat in my fridge for like 3 or 4 days. And I was like, so nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to do this. And now it's like second nature. It's so easy. It's the teeniest, tiniest little needle. But I get that there are valid fears of needles. So there are the oral options that you can incorporate in as well. So with that being said, like we mentioned, the injections bypass the gut and go straight to the bloodstream. So that just makes the injections faster, stronger, more predictable than oral forms. But the capsules, they can be pulled in when you want a little bit like gentler, slower, more convenient delivery, right? Because I have a lot of clients that travel a lot and they're like, how am I going to like pre-pack all my vials and take it all with me? And it's a whole thing. And so for some of them, they're like, for me, it's easier to just have it in a capsule form. So BPC 157 in a capsule form is really good at going in. It will survive your stomach acid and it will repair your gut lining. So that's one. So if you're looking to target that, that's a great delivery method there. Um, so some of the growth hormone releasing peptides also come in capsule form. So they're available, for people that again just can't do needles. Sublingual drops, so those are drops that you put under your tongue. They will be absorbed directly into your bloodstream through the tissues in your mouth. They will also bypass your digestive system. So the peptide isn't broken down like it might be in the capsule form by your stomach acid. So there are good delivery methods, and the science is getting better too, right? Like at figuring out how to formulate them in a way that you can absorb them effectively in all three forms. So different ways to go about it. And then, okay, now for the fun part, let's talk about specific peptides. So let's talk about your peptides by goal, right? We mentioned how do you choose a peptide? You choose it by what you want to feel, heal, or the changes that you want to see in your body. So choosing peptides based off of your goals. So I'm gonna throw out some peptides. You guys can take notes for the ones that like spark your interest. So if you're looking for a metabolic reset, weight loss, and inflammation reduction with steady energy, reduced cravings, balanced blood sugar, sustainable fat loss without crashing. Those are your GLP, GIPs. If you're looking for improved sleep, cellular repair, pulses of growth hormone that are going to help with muscle tone, recovery, body composition, and lowered visceral fat, ipamorelin and tesamorelin or samorelin are the peptides you want to pull in. If you want amazing hair, skin, nails, better collagen support, elasticity in your skin, and that glow from the inside out, that's where GHKCU comes in. This is a copper peptide, and they literally call it like the glow up peptide. If you want better focus and mood, mental clarity, sustained energy, resilience during midlife transitions, that's where Solanc, Samax, or NAD plus can be very beneficial. If you want better performance, recovery, cellular repair, right? On a cellular level, help with blood flow, tissue repair, preventing scarring from building up. If you have a surgery that you need to prepare for and heal from, if you have an old injury that is bothering you, you want better joint support, you want to recover faster from your workouts, BPC 157 plus TB 500 is the peptide for you. If you're wanting libido support and confidence, enhanced sexual desire, help with mood and connection, PT 141. And this one comes in a nasal spray, an injectable, and a capsule form. So lots of delivery methods for that one. And then if you're looking for detox and antioxidants that are going to help with like cellular detox, support your liver, help brighten your skin, boost your immune defense, glutathione. I've had a handful of people adding glutathione and nothing else, and they come to me and say, I am passing parasites because it just improves detox and it helps with your microbiome. And when your microbiome is inhospitable to pathogens like candida and parasite, right? Like they'll pass. So that one's amazing. If you want immune support, if you want to regulate your immune function, help like respond to infections, help boost your immune defense, if you're struggling with Lyme, if you're struggling with mast cell activation, if you're struggling with any kind of autoimmune, this is where your thymosin alpha 1 can be really beneficial. If you're looking for cellular energy and longevity, mitochondrial function, which your mitochondria are like the little powerhouses and the energy for every cell on a cellular level. If you want to rev up your metabolism and help with your overall resilience, MOTS-C, so MOTS-C. And then if you want help with reproductive and hormone balance, supporting hormones, sexual health, improved fertility, and hormone signaling, that's where your kisspeptin comes in. So these are some of the most common peptides that you might start hearing the names of and things that they work towards helping with the signaling and repair for your body. So I had specific questions about peptides. And the first was, which one gets rid of belly fat? So the GLP-1 peptides like semaglutide or tirzepatide, they can suppress appetite while improving insulin sensitivity. So they can reduce overall body fat, which includes the belly fat, and it makes it easier to eat less, and it helps to improve your metabolism. So how they work is they slow stomach emptying. But they work on as well the hormone signaling in your brain. I don't know if you guys have seen the information that's coming out around how GLPs help with addiction recovery, because it's that same center in your brain where you're addicted to food, right? That food noise, those cravings, it works on the craving center in your brain. So they're having a lot of success in helping recovering alcoholics, people go off of, quit smoking, go off of nicotine. It's helping hugely in that arena. Because it doesn't just shut down your hunger, right? It actually works on rewiring the signaling in your brain. Ipamorelin and tesamorelin, that combo will for sure target visceral fat. Visceral fat is that unhealthy fat that builds up around your organs in your middle body. And they support natural growth hormone pulses that help with recovery, lean muscle, metabolism. So that's actually what I'm comboing right now. I am doing the microdose of tirzepatide and then the ipamorelin and tesamorelin. And that is also what my husband is taking right now as well. I know there was at the end of the chat, people were like, what do I get my husband doing? So peptides work just as well, sometimes better for men, which is so annoying, right? You're like, all you did was cut out soda and you lost 12 pounds. I hate you. They just respond better, right? Men are like the sun, women are like the moon. Their hormones are steady day in and day out, and we go on a 28 days roller coaster ride every single month. So their responses to them tend to be a little more predictable. Okay. What is the difference between the GLP and the GLP-GIP? So this is going to be like your semaglutide, your Ozempic, and your tirzepatide. So GLP-1s, they work on one receptor. Their main purpose is to slow digestion, reduce appetite, and regulate blood sugar by acting on the pancreas, the stomach, and the brain. The GLP and the GIP work on two receptors. So when you combine the effects of the GIP with the GLP-1 activation that will further help improve insulin sensitivity. It'll help with fat metabolism and potentially leading to stronger overall fat loss and blood sugar stabilization. These are really good at targeting inflammation. I specifically am not a fan of the GLP-1 because I think that the root of most all of our issues is inflammation. So I'm like, we need to give everyone the one that targets more inflammation. And like I mentioned, I also do not think that they should be given at high doses. This is where we find those pitfalls, those side effects. You'll run into problems if you're dosed too high. You'll start eating too little. If you're underhydrating, if you're not getting enough protein, if you're not strength training, this is where we see the muscle wasting, right? So, a lot of these issues are created by the side effects of being on too high of a dose and not the peptide itself. Okay, so what causes Ozempic face or Ozempic butt? I'm sure we've all been hearing those two phrases. So, Ozempic face happens when your weight loss is so rapid that you lose all of your facial fat. It makes your cheeks, your under eyes, your jawline look hollow. It's more noticeable with age, but this is way less likely to occur if you're microdosing because the goal is not hard and fast. The goal is low and slow, right? Sustainable inflammation reduction and weight loss and visceral fat reduction is done low and slow. And again, as you're moving low and slow, you have to think of it as a marathon, not a sprint. I know that it's really easy to start on a peptide and you start seeing the scale move, right? And your brain starts messing with you and it says, well, if you inject more units this week, your scale will go down faster. And that is not the goal. The goal is low and slow, sustainable weight loss because then your rebound effects, if potentially any, are way less likely to happen, right? So that's what happens with Ozempic face or Ozempic butt. People are not strength training. They lose all their muscle mass. Their appetite is so shut down that they're not eating, let alone eating enough protein. And so how we avoid that is you don't want rapid drops in your weight loss, right? You want a microdose versus the therapeutic high dose. You want to strength train at least 3 days a week. Even and I know for women, strength training seems really intimidating, but guess what? Your own body weight is strength training. So you don't necessarily have to show up in the gym lifting the big heavy weights, but use body weight movements, work your muscles, build those muscles. Adequate protein and nutrition will help with your skin elasticity and your muscles, and hydration helps to maintain the elasticity in your skin as well. So you'll avoid all of that Ozempic face. So what happens to your muscles on peptides? We've kind of gone over this. They can protect your muscles, actually, depending on the type of peptide you use. So if you're using a growth hormone stimulating peptide like ipamorelin, tesamorelin, samorelin, they will pulse growth hormone and release that, which help with protein synthesis, lean muscle growth, and recovery. You'll feel like you can bounce back quicker. After your strength days at the gym, you'll be able to lift heavier, you'll be able to push yourself more, and you'll notice that lean muscle mass will start to come on. They also will reduce fat while preserving that muscle, which is so important, right? This is why I love pairing the GIP with the Ipitessa because it will just help be muscle protective while we're losing that inflammation. So they don't directly build muscle, but the work that you put in while you're on them and the protein that you get that's adequate and the sleep that you make sure to prioritize, all of that's going to help support and maintain your muscle mass. So what peptides help with anti-aging, collagen, and skin elasticity? GHKCU is one that we mentioned. So this is a naturally occurring copper peptide that helps repair tissue. It makes collagen and elastin, and it reduces inflammation. So kind of what it does is it goes throughout your body and it grabs copper and it delivers them to your hair follicles. So hair regrowth and thickening is a huge one that happens with GHKCU. So it stimulates your hair follicles, it improves your scalp circulation, and it reduces inflammation, which can lead to like healthier, thicker hair, which as women, when we reach perimenopause, also we notice a lot of shifts in our hair health. So the best peptides for recovery and performance, that'll be your BPC 157 plus TB 500. This will help heal tendons, muscle, ligament, gut tissue, reduce inflammation, help speed up tissue repair, support systemic recovery, cell migration. It helps new blood vessels to form. It'll help with flexibility, joint health, muscle repair. And then the ipamorelin, tesamorelin is going to help with those growth hormones. It'll help with muscle repair, lean muscle mass recovery. It improves sleep. You guys, my sleep has been so good since starting ipamorelin and tesamorelin, like not below a 90 on my aura, like phenomenal recovery. Um, Peptides help with libido, arousal, and function. We kind of talked about this. The PT141 or the thrill pill is what they call it in the capsule form. So it works. So how it works, it doesn't necessarily work on your body's response, but it works on your brain and your nervous system's response to boost sexual arousal and function. So benefits to that one can last a couple of hours and immune modulating peptides. So some of the most common immune modulating peptides are thymosin alpha 1, BPC 157, and TB 500, and then LL37. So these are all going to help with immune modulating and peptides that help with eczema. So peptides like GHKCU, BPC157, and TB500 can help support skin repair, reduce inflammation, help with tissue healing, which all of those in turn will help with eczema flares. But we definitely want to repair the underlying issue as to why the eczema is happening. And that can be done through figuring out what is going on, because anytime something shows up on your skin externally, that's a clear sign that there's an internal imbalance that needs to be addressed, whether that's parasites, bacteria, heavy metals, candida, just helping support and to detoxify that internal microbe. So that's also where glutathione can come in and support with eczema as well. So you guys, I have such a huge testimony of peptides. Um, they turned things around for me when I had tried literally everything else. I daily get testimonials from clients and friends about how much has shifted for them since they've added in peptides. I fully believe that peptides are the future of longevity. Um, I think they are going to be the biggest breakthrough tool in wellness in our entire lifetime. The combinations of peptides, the dosing, the different peptides that they're combining, they're going to get even more precise and personalized in helping recovery, performance, metabolism, health and wellness. They're going to continue to have higher safety standards. And as long as we are incorporating those foundational things, they're such an amazing support tool to help us on our journey, specifically as women, extra specifically throughout midlife shifts and transitions. I think we're just scratching the surface on what peptides can do for our health span, our quality of life. And I'm so glad that there's such an interest in that all of you joined the call today.
Oh my goodness. She was just like bam, 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 bam. And I missed when I was introducing and handing it over, I missed telling you all that as we got on the call, Katie said that everyone in her family just came down with the flu. So she just powered through that and gave you all that information while herself being down with the flu. There was multiple people that were like, but can we have a moment where Katie tells us her skincare routine? Because this is what she
Whoa,
looks like
with
with
the
the
flu.
flu. Which is
Well, I did actually switch to a European skincare line that eliminates water from their ingredients and uses all bioactive ingredients in the line. And they have a full line, all skincare products along with makeup. So,
super cool.
yeah,
Okay, well,
it
I'll have
has
to get
made
the
the biggest
details.
difference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will have to get the info from you on that one or have another call. We're like, okay, let's talk about what we can
We're
put
talking about skincare.
our faces topically, our bodies topically. I am waiting for my DHKCU cream.
Yeah,
I got the one from LEMD, which we'll talk to you guys. We'll give you some links to.
yeah,
So that's the last question is where do we
yeah.
get these from? You mentioned compounded
Hmm.
503A. Did I say the numbers right? I'm like, I'm
Triple
gonna
purity
mix the
tested. Yes.
peptide and mix the
Like,
compound. It's like all
mhm.
these numbers and letters. Yeah, and so I have messed around with being a chemist in my kitchen. I will let you all know. I can't say I'm like super confident in how I did that. I did have to like leverage Chat GPT. Like, I was like, am I sure? And even as I put into the syringe, I was like in about to break a sweat because I was like, I hope I got this calculation right because this is a little bit terrifying. I'm like, what if I.
Yeah.
But I much prefer my ones from a compounded pharmacy, and I understand from what I gather you mentioned quite a few. And I'm going to do
Hmm.
a recap of what you went over because I have the call outline information and I'll send that to everyone. So all those letters and numbers and what they're for, I'll have that down for you. But I also
No, it's like it sounds like gibberish.
yeah, for sure. And I know that some of the ones that you mentioned ones that are beyond what's at a compound pharmacy.
Hmm.
So just like straight up, I wanted something to help my mom with her total inflammation. She's post menopause and also for her rotator cuff injury, it was TB. It was
Hmm.
BPC 157 and TB 500. And before I found telemedicine and like that option to like connect her with,
Yeah.
I was looking at like just like some peptide research places.
Like gray market.
Yeah, technically gray market, which I think some are better than others, and you have to look at the purity and you just like have to figure
Right.
out how to be
Yeah.
confident navigating that. My
Yeah.
almost 70-year-old mother, it didn't care how many ones I was like, but it's pure. She's like, it says it's not for animals and humans. And like, there's zero chance unless I tell her doctor, pharmacy, compounded,
Right.
all like that's the only way that I was likely going to get her over that hump to potentially try them, and all of her providers were looking at each individual issue she had in a vacuum and weren't looking at her total health
Mhm.
profile. And so I got her.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll get her to do it again, but I got her to do a lab draw through Function Health so that we could take big picture, look
Yeah.
at all of her labs in one go round, and then
Yeah.
basically we leveraged AI to get, and it's funny because it's like, do you trust the intelligence of AI or not? But I'm like, I do at this point, and I'm like, is my mom a candidate for these peptides? And then I gave her a little list of questions to take to her gen prac, just to double check. But the problem was that her general practitioner didn't know anything about them. So, but then she went to her physical therapist and said, took the
Wow, good.
to the physical therapist, and her physical therapist responded, I'm on that.
Oof.
I'm on
Good.
what you're asking about. And so then it was
So that helped her to feel more comfortable.
1,000%. And so she's on board. We're just waiting for it to come in. And the last piece that I'll share before we can like tell the people how to get them and get them confidently is that there's like these boutique pop-up kind of peptide med spa wellness places that I've noticed like in the Austin area. There's one in my small hometown in Belchase in Louisiana, and they were going to wind up charging her a membership fee and a doctor and all these different fees, and that was going to be outside of what the actual compounded peptide was. And so she was looking at decently over 500, if not $700, just when all of the things were, and it was like a membership. So it was this
Wow.
ongoing thing. So I actually looked into, because I also wanted to go the avenue of she talked to a real person and they gave her a real, I wanted to try and make it like feel as tangible and real for her as I could. And then it was just an
Right.
astronomical price point. She's retired military. So it's just, it wasn't jiving. It was going to be too much. And then it was actually through that process that I found LEMD. Bless you. Which
Thank
wound up
you.
being, yeah, it was through that process that I found LEMD, and I asked, and then I wound up having my chiropractor friend have a conversation with her. And then it was in that conversation that I found out, and then kind of navigated our way to you. But so I know that that's my new favorite way because it was so easy and seamless. And my mom was super down.
Mm-hmm.
She had a conversation with a nurse practitioner who went over what her
Mm-hmm.
form that she submitted to them. And she goes, "Lady was so nice." I go, "Great, Dondra." So I mean, if anyone can feel their relationship with their mother, as I tell you these things, and so I'm so excited to get her involved. And so anyway, I'll let you answer the rest of that question, like someone who wants confidence.
Yeah, and that's where, like I spent my time, I've been approached by people who want to start peptide companies. And they're like, we want you on board, we need your expertise. And I'm like, I'm not going to do or suggest anything unless these purity standards like quality and dosing matter. I'm not going to just mix peptides in my kitchen and give them to my friends and family. That is not how this thing is going to work. So when I found the purity standards and the strict quality testing done with LEMD, it just made sense. Also, knowing that you have a providing doc that is the prescriber that you can ask questions to, that helps manage your dose. Me, I can just be like your support, right? I can give education and guidance and support, but then liability doesn't fall on me either. If you're like, well, my dosing was wrong or whatever, it's like, well, that's managed by the doc. So just me as a practitioner, it fit the best because it checked all my boxes. And their reputation is incredible. They're onboarding quite a few things in the near future when it comes to at-home lab draws and hormone testing and bioidentical hormone replacement. And like I mentioned, I just think that there's a couple of really standout telehealth platforms that are going to keep getting better, and the things that they're going to provide. It's life changing, right? You don't have to make an appointment, go sit at the doctor, wait 3 months for it, go sit at the doctor's office, wait to meet with the doctor. He orders the lab work. You go all the way over to the lab to have it drawn. Then you wait 4 more weeks. Then you go back and you go over the result. Like it comes to your front door. You draw it yourself. You ship it off. And what you need shows back up to your front door. The turnaround, like I just think telehealth is the future of medicine as well. So,
I think so
yeah.
too. And for me, it's like I do my research. A lot of times I know more than the doctor does, which is weird
Right.
regarding myself. I know more about me than the doctor knows, you know? And
Yeah.
so, and it's like, I'm not, and my sister is a nurse practitioner of over 20 years in oncology. Like she does bone marrow transplant
Mm-hmm.
situation, every Wednesday. That's
Mm-hmm.
her, she's the family doctor. I am the healthiest, by far, I am the healthiest person in my family. Like,
Same.
that doesn't mean this whole past weekend I was in New Orleans and I always think maybe I'll go home and they will have changed their ways. No, poor sleep, lots of alcohol, lots of butter, lots of spice, lots of, all the things and
Yeah.
fried foods, all the stuff. And I'm the weird one. I'm the weird
Yep.
one. I'm sorry. I want to look good. I want to feel good. I want to live a beautiful life with my children. And the truth of the matter is that my pregnancy journey led me to be almost 36 before I had my first baby that I brought home, which means I'm likely going to be having, if we want siblings for Isaiah, I'm going to be pushing 40. So there's so many things that I'm considering now that I never thought I was going to have to consider because we started trying to get pregnant when I was 33 and I thought I would be done by at the latest 38 and it's possible we're even over the 40. And so for me I'm like I don't want my child to feel the difference in their mom being an age and their peers having parents that are a different age. And
Because you remember being in high school and noticing, like,
yeah.
oh, their parents are really old. What
Yeah.
compared to some of your other friends?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I
But
also
again, you
yeah,
want the longevity, the energy, like you want to be running around with your grandkids and you don't want to be that
1000%.
geriatric mom.
I already had to be a geriatric pregnant person. So I'm not just going to take that and continue on with it. And I also want to personally, and I imagine a lot of you are like this too, I want to do the health from the inside out. Because the people, when I go back home, they look good, but I know what's going on. There's no way that their habits and their behaviors and all those things that are it's Botox, it's lift, it's a it's all these different things. It's the high doses of the GLP-1, GIP, whatever combination. It's there's no way systemically that they can be that healthy. And so their vibrance is in a way contrived. You can feel it where
For
it's like there's
sure.
a lot of work and a lot of things that were done, but you can
But you can tell
feel,
from the inside out that their light is dim. The
yeah,
vibrancy,
yeah.
the energy, like you can read that.
I don't judge. I have had to learn long ago, like my family and the people in my community from back home are going to do what they're going to do. And I have to love them, and I have my moments where I'm like, I had to break out of that and that had a feeling. And now I just need to focus on what is my actual priority. And that's living a good life with my son, with my husband. I want to be turned on way into my 60s and 70s. I want to, it's like I look at this window of time right before midlife. This is where I can start laying a foundation to ensure that that happens. And I am
Yeah.
so personally so grateful that I found bioregulators, peptides, this whole
Hmm.
world before, like, as my entrance into the perimenopause window, which is like a
Yes.
decade plus for some
Right.
people. So,
And what a time to be alive, right? Because they have turned around the Women's Health Initiative, which destroyed the opportunity for good quality hormone replacement for women for a whole generation of women. And it's like those of us that are, like approaching perimenopause and menopause ourselves are like, no, do better. Like
yeah,
we're fixing this
yeah,
because
yeah.
we watched what our mothers went through.
Totally. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Anyway, it's like we could talk about this for a really long time, and I'm noticing
So
the time. Katie, that was amazing. That was so much
thank you for
information
having
in
me.
like a little window of time. And so, if y'all want to share it in the chat, just like thanks to Katie for like rallying and like I
I'm
do
gonna go crawl back in bed.
right. I'm like, I do not have the flu and I don't look like that. But I did travel by myself with my toddler yesterday, so I'm just gonna,
Yeah,
put
you
that
need
in.
a recovery day.
I need to recover.
Anything in the chat that didn't get answered? I did notice questions about HSA and FSA. Yes, those payment options are available. They also have payment plans specifically with the compounding telehealth that we've found is
Yeah,
beneficial for
yeah, for
getting
sure.
peptides.
For
So
sure.
yeah,
And I'm gonna send, because that was so much information, I'm gonna send an
yeah.
email to
Sorry.
everybody that has the link where you can watch the replay. And then I will pull from your call notes just like the labs to
Yeah,
look at and just put all that. And
yeah.
then also the little list that you ran through as far as if this is the issue you're experiencing, these
Hmm.
might be the peptides to look into.
Yeah,
And then it's kind of like you choose as far as what I've
yeah.
gathered is like the first thing that I
Hmm.
needed to work on was my gut, which was the BPC 157 oral pills.
Yeah,
And I don't have a gallbladder, years of issues with my digestion, SIBO. I've done all the functional med
all the things.
protocols. It just makes my head spin. But and thinking about how much money I've spent on all of that over the years, and to only now and postpartum feel the best as an adult as maybe I've ever felt, which is wild to say. So I'll put together the like, if you have this issue, then maybe look into these. And then it's kind of like you choose your adventure.
Yeah,
There's not going to be a
there's
not
no harm.
there,
Yeah,
right? And so it's like, okay, I want to reduce inflammation and I want to do this. Then you just do it. The person who gives you permission is you.
yeah.
It's not, which is like that's the part that like breaks my mom going to her doctor. Like that breaks her brain. She's like, wait,
He's
but
like,
he
the
told me to do
doctor
it.
didn't tell me to do it.
Yeah, like and she's like, so are they gonna tell me what to do? It's gonna arrive and I'm not. I'm like, Mom, like you have a whole right of it's gonna come and it's gonna tell you.
All the information,
All gonna
everything
tell
you
you. She's like,
need.
yeah, but I'm like, okay.
I know.
So, but anyway,
We are each the experts in our own health, right?
exactly.
And I think there's a huge shift, especially in the last 5 years, of like tuning in, advocating for yourself, trying something different, realizing that the old systems aren't set up for wellness and longevity, and we got to take that power back into our own hands.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you again, Katie. This was fun.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed I'm the person that's known for your sex life, in general. I'm the person that what's intimacy? And then I have this thing come into my lap where I'm like, I have to talk about this because this has positively, majorly, positively impacted Like I was
Your
saying,
intimacy.
my
Yeah.
intimacy. And that's not just the
Yep.
intimacy with my partner, but the closeness, the
Yeah.
intimacy with my child, with my family,
Because when you feel better in your own body,
yeah,
you show up better and connect better with the people that you love around you.
yeah, agreed. And so I had to bring my curiosity to the masses.
Yeah.
And I
If
will,
anyone has questions, you can send them my way. Whatever you guys need on social, I'm most active on Instagram. It's simply.well.katie. So if you have questions, you can always DM me, find me there.
can ask
I'm
her.
banned, I'm shadow banned, but whatever.
Probably me soon too. So, and if they want to ask you about your incredible, whatever you do for your skin,
Yeah.
then they can find you there too.
Yes.
All right, y'all. Sending you so much love. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to DM me, can DM Katie, and then give me maybe a day or two to get that follow-up email out to all of you. Okay? All right, y'all. Have a great day.
Thank you.